This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday Twilight Show. I'm your host, Michelle, and this evening we have another very special guest who will join us to discuss the qualities of good leaders and how leadership in education has evolved over the years. What is required to be an effective leader? Are we born leaders or are we taught how to be leaders?
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello again, everyone. And before I introduce tonight's very special guest, who I'm so honored to have on the show, I'm pleased to announce that this is my 10th show on Teachers Talk Radio. And yes, time flies. I know that my guest is already in the room and I will welcome her shortly. But time really does fly. I remember my first show, I was a nervous wreck. I think Tom must have been wondering, why did she sign up for this? I wanted everything to be perfect. And here we are on my 10th show. So thanks for tuning in, all my regular listeners and those who download the podcast afterwards. Thanks for sharing your own thoughts and just for being inspired. And I think we deserve one of these because we've done it together. There you go. So cheers to my 10th show. And I know that there are some other hosts who've doubled, tripled that, but I think it's important that we acknowledge all the milestones, okay? Because they motivate. Uh, Tonight is the final show in a three-part series on leadership. The first show focused on how to lead change, that is facilitating the growth of staff and the outcomes of students. Last show, if you remember, the topic was Lead Like a Champion, where we explored the strategies leaders need to employ to prepare schools for the rapid growth in technology in education. Today, we will be having a kind of a synoptic show with practical advice on the skills and knowledge required for effective leadership. I trust and hope that there will be further takeaways from tonight's show, but don't forget to download the Podbean app to call or send us your questions or comments. And so, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome tonight's guest, Mrs. Joanna Hoval. Now, Joanna.
Hi, thanks, Michelle.
I've been practicing your surname all evening, and I'm sure I still butchered it. But
You didn't.
Oh, great!
Honestly, it was absolutely perfect. I keep joking with my husband. We've been together for over 30 years, and I keep saying to him, I should have kept my maiden name, but my maiden name's even worse. So I'll stick with Paval. But you did it perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, excellent! That's a relief. So I happened to tune into another podcast and heard Joanna being interviewed, and I was immediately drawn to her authentic style of leadership, the care and integrity evident in her responses. And it was at that moment I thought I would love to learn more about Joanna. And so I'm honored to have her on the show tonight. Joanna is the principal of Wales International School in Abu Dhabi, UAE. She has over 25 years of leadership experience in schools in the UK, France, and the UAE. Alongside working as a principal, she supports school improvement around the world as a lead improvement partner for the Council of British International Schools. And this is quite an achievement, in my opinion. Joanna was awarded the TES International School Principal of the Year 2024. So congratulations, Joanna.
Thank you.
All of us.
Thanks. I still can't believe it.
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. So bask in it, and wherever you put your name, you add that to it, please. because that's
Thank you.
that's such
Thank
a
you.
fun. So, welcome to the show. I know it's the end of term. It's busy. It's after 9 here in the UAE, so you've really made a sacrifice, and I appreciate that. And that is how you know true educators, because we do whatever it takes to improve the well-being of others. Uh, I was just thinking earlier, Joanna, that the summer term is the longest but the most rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm exhausted.
No, same. We've had a week of debating competitions. We've at the moment we're having inter-house debates. Yesterday we debated against all the other Repton schools, and we won. By the way, I've got to add that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it's tiring, but it's just rewarding to see everything culminating, coming together that we've worked so hard to achieve
Yeah.
over the year. Yeah. So, listeners who've already joined, Hope, thank you so much. We've got Hugh. This person is a regular, but I never get the name right. But huge ZKII, welcome. Hope, so lovely to have you online as well. And we look forward to your comments. Everybody else, remember to download the Podbean app so you can engage with us, send us your messages, ask questions. Joanne is willing to answer them, and just make your comments. So before we get into the questions, we will have a short break and listen to some of our sponsors.
Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out! Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading! Hi teachers! We're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
So there you have it. Our sponsors are growing weekly, which is great to see, and lots out there for us as teachers and educators to tap into. So please check them out. Right, Joanna, we're going to get right into it now because, believe it or not, the time goes by so quickly. So before we get into the questions based on tonight's topic, could you tell us a little bit about your journey to headship?
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, it wasn't something that I intended to do. When I first started teaching, I wasn't a career teacher, so to speak. So I went into it for the love of the job and for wanting to spend time with children. And I totally understand when people say to me, I'm very happy being a classroom teacher. I was happy being a classroom teacher too. I love teaching. And it was kind of an accident all the way along, I would say. So my first ever job, it was a bit of a con, really. I was conned into a job that was the sole person in charge of a department. So I was told that I was in a department in humanities. I taught religious studies. And in the department, there was only me who was the specialist religious studies teacher. So as an NQT, I was the de facto head of department. And I actually sat there thinking, I can do this. So I was thrown in at the deep end and ended up in my first year of teaching running a department because I had non-specialists who were coming to me for their planning. And so from that perspective, I learned about leadership on the job straight away in my first year of teaching. And after a couple of years, I started getting a little bit frustrated by that, which I'm sure people understand, and thinking, hold on a minute, I'm doing a job of a head of department here. I can do this. I'm not getting paid for it. I'm just doing this as part of my role. Maybe I could do this as an actual job. And so I applied for a head of department role, and I was successful in getting that. And then it kind of went from there, really. I've been very fortunate that in every single school that I've worked in, I've been internally promoted. And so that's been great because I've had fantastic head teachers who've recognised my potential and who approached me and said, actually, do you think you could do this job, or we've got this job going, we think you should apply for it. And they really encouraged me to reach for the stars, to be honest. I've had some fantastic head teachers who were really mentors throughout my whole career, and I really, really appreciate what they did for me and hope that I pass that on to other people. So that did me good in that sense, because that taught me something, which I'm sure we'll come on to soon. And then I moved to France 20 years ago and raised my family there. I was deputy head teacher of a prestigious British school, international school in France, stayed there for a very long time while my kids grew up. And then my husband and I decided that we were going to come to the UAE. And so I started at international community schools in Abu Dhabi. I worked in their head office as their education advisor for the group, and decided that was my dream. It's quite funny. I actually wanted to be an education director when I worked in the UK. My dream job was to be the council's education director. And so I thought I had my dream job, and it was great. I enjoyed it, but I wanted to get back into school. I missed spending time with the children and actually having responsibility for one school. It's vastly different when you've got a lot of schools that you're looking after. And so I wanted to go back into one school, and was very, very lucky that the job at Wales came up, and I was successful in getting that. And it's my second year at Wales, and I really love it. I really, really love it. And I think it's the best thing I could have done, and I'm very, very happy. And being a principal, lots of people, it's not their dream to be a principal, but it's mine. And every day I go to work happy, and that's important to me.
That is so good to hear, Joanna. And I was just noting a few of the things you said, and you said headship was not your intention. You just wanted to be in the classroom and to effect change there. And I think that's one of the principles I also hold. And even now people go, Michelle, aren't you a principal yet? And people are surprised that I haven't got to that level. But I love being head of department, and I've loved doing that. But I've also just loved being with those students and just watch them blossom. But a question based on what you've said, Joanna. So you were appointed head of department, and you were, I'm sure, very young.
Now, 22.
Yeah. Oof. Very young. Now, if you were to reflect on your experience then as a leader, is there anything that you did then that you would have changed today?
I think I would have been more confident. It was quite difficult because there's a bit of a misnomer in schools about, and I've seen it throughout my whole career, it's not about how old you are, it's about your capacity to do things and your capability to do things. And I would say as a young person, I very much felt that there were older teachers who were sort of had an attitude of, I mean, we're talking early 90s here, it was a very long time ago, and I would hope that things have changed. They certainly aren't like this at my school, but it was very much, I was the person saying, this is the scheme of work, here's the lesson planning, this is what you need to deliver. Who's this girl to be telling me to do this? And I took it to heart a little bit, I would say. And if I could look back on myself, I would say to myself, no, actually, you were right. Have the confidence and bat it back a little bit more, be a bit more assertive than I was then.
Yes, I completely agree. So I was appointed head of department when I was about 24, and this was back in Jamaica. And the principal called me in her office and she said, right, Michelle, I would like you to be the head of English. And I was like, me? She went, yes. And it was the same. One comment was, oh, yeah, she got that by default. It's not because she can do it. And that really broke my heart.
Yeah, it's awful. And people are so, you would think that colleagues would be happy for you. And sometimes that's not the case. And it is hurtful. But
we're hoping that the tide is changing and we're encouraging young people to really fill the gaps and rise.
Definitely.
So that then leads me to the next question, because you said you were asked to lead the department. So I'm thinking there must have been something. The head teacher must have seen something in you, Joanna. So my question is, do you believe that leadership qualities are more innate or developed over time? And why or why not?
I would have to say I'm 50-50 on this one, because I think there are natural qualities that people have. If my family were here now, they would tell you that I'm bossy, and they laugh about it. So my mum, if she was listening to us now, my mum would say, well, of course she would be a principal because she likes bossing people around. And I don't, and I am, although I just said I needed to be more assertive, I can be quite assertive. However, that's a natural quality, and I think that communication's a natural quality that some people have, some people don't have, and that's something that you're born with. However, with experience, you can improve on that. So it's a really hard question for me to answer, because it really is genuinely 50-50. I think we all have innate qualities that are natural. They come naturally to us, and that's easier for some people, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't teach it to other people.
Yes. And I think,
yeah. So if I can give you an example, having difficult conversations, if I can go back to our initial thing about being a head of department at first, I had never had to have difficult conversations with people before. So that was something that wasn't natural for me. I didn't like to have to confront people with things. And I know it's not I didn't mean it in a confrontational way. It's stating facts and having difficult conversations with people I had never had to do before. And I used to lie awake at night worrying about having to speak to people because it didn't come naturally to me. Now, after 28 years in the teaching profession, I don't bat an eyelid because I have a lot of experience in that and I've learned how to do it. So I would say that that's something that wasn't ingrained in me. It's not natural to me to have difficult conversations, but now I've learned how to do it.
Yeah. And they do come regularly sometimes, depending
yes.
on
Every day.
Every day is a difficult conversation. So I totally agree. It's 50-50. And you mentioned that, yes, we have those innate skills of communication and certain leadership qualities. But if they're not honed, then we absolutely do nothing with it. We'll just sit there and not really push ourselves.
Totally agree.
Before I continue, Emily, welcome, fellow host there in the UK. Welcome, Emily. Hope to hear from you shortly. So my other question, Joanna, was about those inherent traits that you think are crucial for an effective leader, especially in education. And you've mentioned communication and being able to have difficult conversations. What else do we need to be effective, you think?
I think something that's very important to me is integrity and authenticity. And I think you have to know yourself very well and what your values are and what you stand for and be true to them. And I think that has a huge impact on the whole school community, the parents, the children. You really do need to be authentic and have integrity. Be courageous, because it's not an easy job being a leader. And I would say, and confidence in that. Something that I would say is important, but I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, which I know virtually everybody in the world of education is. But he talks a lot about positivity and toxic positivity, but also about optimism. And for me in leadership, the most important thing, everything that I've mentioned, resilience is important. We can give a huge list, but optimism is very important to me, because I get up every day, and regardless of what has happened the day before or the week before, or difficult things happen during your week or time, every day's got a different challenge. But I get up in the morning and I go to work and I think, today is going to be, we can make a difference. I can come in the morning and I smile. And when I worked in France, I remember a colleague saying, how do you do this? Every day you come into work and you smile, and everything can be going wrong. And we know you're having a really difficult time, but you come in and you smile at the gate and greet the children. How do you do that? And I was like, because I have to believe that things can get better. And I do. And I think optimism is a trait that a lot of people don't think about, but in leadership, it's very important to really believe that you can make a difference and that you can make things better.
And from your experience, Joanna, how has that influenced your staff, you think? Have you seen the impact of that?
I think so, yeah. And I think authenticity is important as well, because I would like to think that people know that they can come to me and they'll get a straight answer, and they know that I'm optimistic. So in my current role, for example, they know that I love the school. The kids know, the staff know, and the parents know, and that optimism, I would like to think, is really shining through. And I actually had a student say it to me the other day. He might have been in trouble, and he sat down and we were having a bit of a chat, and he said, "Miss," and I said, "Yeah," and he went, "You really love this school, don't you?" And I said, "I do." And he went, "Okay." And then we actually had some people in school visiting, and it was really funny because that same little boy came up to me in the corridor and he saw me with this group of visitors and he went, "Miss," and I went, "Yeah," and he went, "We're going to make you proud today, don't worry." And I thought, yes, that's what you want.
Yes. And that's why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
Those moments. And, children, they see through everything. They know when you're
yeah.
Yeah. They can tell if you really enjoy your job. They can tell from a mile off.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah. So it's so important that they've recognized that. And Emily just posted, wow, optimism is powerful. It surely is. And I tell you what, Joanna, years ago, I remember we're about to have, I was in the UK and we're preparing for Ofsted. And I was just being so positive, and I couldn't understand why people were getting flustered and running around. And somebody from the head office, it was one of those MATs, multi-academy trusts, and somebody from the head office said to me, "Oh, Michelle, you're just too positive. You're just too positive." Yes. Because I often say, "Don't worry, it's going to be all right." And that's one of the things I often say. It's okay, we've got this. Oh, I was head of department. She said, "You're too positive." And at that point, I thought, you know what? I'm going to take back the reins from these people and lead my department through this Ofsted inspection.
Good for you.
So thank you for that as well, Emily. And thank you so much on optimism. I've made a note of that. So important. Now, how important do you think formal education and training is in developing leadership skills? Do you think enough of that happens at the training level, teacher training level?
I think we can always do more. And what I would say is, I say to my teaching staff, there is a science to learning, and we need to understand this science of learning. You don't need to be a scientist, but you need to understand what the science is behind learning so that we can help the children to learn. There's similarly a science behind leadership. And what I would say to you is, many, many, many years ago, oh my goodness, how long have I been married? A very long time ago. I won't say, we're in 3 decades now. Maybe my husband was working in industry at the time and he was in leadership and I was a newly qualified teacher, and I read voraciously and I ran out of books to read, and he had a leadership book, and I remember sitting there and he said, "Well, if you're bored you can read this." So I said, "Okay then," and I sat and read it, and it actually revolutionized my life. There were so many things in that book that I still remember now. And to me, That was 30 years ago. I was reading a leadership book and it had a huge impact on me. So just as there is a science to learning, there's a science to leadership. There are people who are way more qualified than me who are writing books about how to teach. There are people who are way more qualified than me who are writing books about leadership, not necessarily just in education, in the world of business, in the world of industry. These people know their stuff, and they are the people that we should be channeling really into, we should be reading, we should be training, because they are teaching. There's a psychology to it that we need to understand. Does that make sense?
Completely, Joanna. This is what I was trying to get across in a previous show as well, that it's important that we understand the science behind leading and learning. It is so important that we do understand these frameworks and how they've evolved and new research as well, and how we can use that to improve our own leadership or just being a classroom teacher. I shouldn't say just being. I take that back. Everybody who's listening, sorry, classroom teachers, we're the best. We empower, we inspire. So let me just not say
Absolutely.
that. Please, no, Michelle, naughty. So based on what you've said, Joanna, how important it is therefore for your CPD sessions? I mean, how important are they in developing staff? Because I've been speaking to colleagues, and a number of them have expressed their frustration in CPDs that they're not often very developmental. So that's one part of my question. How do we use CPD then to encourage reading and to train our staff?
I think it's a difficult one, because I think CPD actually needs to be bespoke and individual to people. And I see so many CPD sessions that schools put on, our school included, that everybody falls into the trap of doing this, of, you do something on a Monday night after school and you think everybody needs the same, and they don't. And obviously, particularly when you're a 3 to 18 school, quite often it's difficult to gauge, because people in EYFS will go, do we really need to come to this because it doesn't apply to us? Yes, it does. Or at the other end, it'll be, well, we're secondary, that's a bit primary, and you go, no, it's whole school. And so that's quite difficult. So it does need to be bespoke. But the other thing that I would say is try to engage your staff in collective staff efficacy, and by doing that, things like doing research-based projects and things. And we have a book club that I run at school every Tuesday afternoon, and that's invaluable. It's 30 minutes. We do one book a term, and we've done so many books. We've done Paul Dick's When the Adults Change. We've done Deborah Ayres' HPL. We did Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. And we read a chapter or a couple of chapters a week, and then we get together on Tuesday night and talk about it and how it impacts on our school and what difference it made to us and how we've reflected on us. And I would say that's probably one of the most valuable CPD sessions that we have throughout the week, because we're actually reading and then talking about it. And then the other thing that I do is on Thursday morning before school, I call it my Pioneers group. And that comes from the book that I read 30 years ago, because it was saying that you need pioneers in your organisation to move it forward. You need people who drive the culture of your school. Or it was a factory in this case that I was reading about, but I really took it to heart. And every Thursday morning we meet, and I've just said it's totally voluntary. If you want to move our school forward and you want to be part of the journey, come on Thursday morning, and we do little bits of research, and we start with 10 minutes of tell me something positive that happened this week. And that's really shifting the culture, because everybody's thinking of, actually, do you know what? I have had something good this week, instead of getting into the grind of, I'm doing reports, I've got parents' evening, it's graduation, and people getting stressed out. We're not thinking about that. What was positive? And that, like I say, is shifting the culture, and more people are joining, and it's encouraging them. I give them I call it their homework. Just something simple, like I want every single person in the Pioneer group walk around the school. So we'd had a comment in a recent visit from an inspection team, there needs to be more fun. So I said, walk around. I don't want names, don't want classes, whatever. Tick sheet. Walk past the classrooms, just pop your head in. Look through the window. With the doors open, pop your head in the door. Did it look fun? Come back next week and let's feedback. And it's been really, really interesting to see how motivated the staff are by that.
Oh, wow, Joanna, that was so inspirational. And it was only yesterday I was speaking to a vice principal about having our own book club, but looking at edubooks. And I said the same thing, a chapter, a page, not even a chapter, just a page. Talk about it. Come and it's all about research and continuing to improve our practice. And just listening to you, I'm now so motivated to go back and say, "Sir, listen, this is happening and it can be done."
Do you know the other thing that we should do? Sorry, I'm having a bit of a brainwave here. I have these periodically. You'll get used to me. I have ADHD. I suffer, but my brain's going off on one. Do it in your school. But the other thing that we should do is get schools together. We don't collaborate enough. We are not in competition. We're all doing the same thing, which is trying to improve children's lives. We could do an online book club. So we could get the word out there and say, if you're in the same time zone, if you're in a different time zone, it's fine. But, read a chapter of the book and let's get together online and talk about it.
I love that. And I think we should make it happen, Joanna.
Definitely.
Because we learn from each other and we share best practice. And as you said, it's not a competition. Because ultimately, why are we here? It's for the students. And it's for every single one of them to be successful and to be optimally rounded individuals. So that is so inspiring and something I definitely will consider. I'll probably start with my school and see if I could infiltrate at the top and encourage them to. As a matter of fact, I told the current head of department, I'm going to start with the department. And I'm currently studying, Joanne, I'm doing my doctorate actually.
Yeah.
Something I started years ago and had to stop so that I could start a family or raise my family. And my professor said, it's so important that teachers engage in these discussions, the latest research, the latest book about certain things, rather than gossiping, his own words, in the staff room. And he said the gossip leads to negativity, and then everybody leaves feeling stressed, and everybody leaves feeling demotivated for the next day. He said, get a quote, something, throw it out. And
absolutely agree.
Yeah. So we really need to kind of lead our teachers in that direction. I don't know. I love learning. I love to learn. And Emily is online. When Emily was at my current school, we would share a car. And after a Thursday, when I had my lecture, Friday morning, we talked all the way to school, stopped in the car and continued the conversation. Not about people, but just about what I'm learning.
Absolutely. I can't understand sometimes as a teacher. I always call myself a teacher. People laugh at me. So sometimes I'll go in, I might have my hair done, get my nails done, and the lady who's doing my nails will say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "I'm a teacher." And they say, "What subject do you teach?" And I go, "Oh, I'm not actually a teacher. I'm a principal." But I still say, if people say, "What do you do?" I say to people, I never ever say I'm a principal. I say I'm a teacher still. And for me, as a teacher, I love learning. Your whole job is to impart wisdom and help people to learn. So you should want to still continue to learn yourself. Learning never stops.
It never stops. And this is what I'm trying to pass on to my students as well. You're always learning. And one of the year 11s came back and said, "You know what, Miss? Thanks for your passion. I hated English and you made me fall in love with it." She went, "I can't believe I love poetry," because she's more scientifically inclined. She said, "I cannot believe that." And that really touched my heart. And, I'm thinking, well, one starfish at a time, Michelle. If you just can impact one starfish at a time, you've done your job. And Emily said, teachers should be the greatest example of a student. Exactly.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Before we take another break, I'd like you to share with us, Joanne, if possible, an example of successful leaders who have undergone significant professional development. So maybe somebody you've mentored and just see how they've blossomed.
I would say, if I could talk about a group, not last year, the year before, I was a mentor for NPQLT, which is the old... the middle leadership one, and then they split it into groups, and it was the leading teaching, and it was a group of middle leaders from all around the UAE, lots of people from Abu Dhabi, people from Dubai, and that obviously you do the training with them, and then they do their project, and they, in their final session, it was all online, and then in their final session they came to the school and they presented their projects, and watching them blossom and grow throughout the training of NPQLT was lovely to watch. But since then I've actually stayed in touch with quite a lot of them, and they've all moved on into other jobs since then. So they completed the course, and over the course of the next 2 years, they've all gone into further leadership roles. And that's an absolute pleasure to see. And I really believe it was because of that training that it gave them the confidence. And again, the learning that they had was just invaluable. And I really think it's had an impact, and that really stays with me. And it's something very special that I feel like I contributed, I hope, to mentoring them. And that was really nice.
No, that is excellent. And that's so important as well, that we coach and mentor at whatever level, and just watch people flourish and grow and come into their own. It is really lovely to see. So we're going to take a short break, and let me just welcome once again everybody who's online. Those of you who are on Podbean, those of you who are listening outside of that, well, welcome and thank you for joining us. It's been such an inspirational discussion so far. Thank you so much, Joanna. Mom and Dad, I know you're glued to your phone listening. Thank you so much. And I hope you're enjoying the show as well. Hope said, really enjoying it. Thank you, Hope. So we'll take a short break and listen to our sponsors.
Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading. Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Joanna. For want of a better word, I cannot explain to you how much you've empowered me tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just to encourage others to have the same love for learning. And you mentioned the online book club and get other schools involved. And as the kids would say, I'm buzzing. I'm
Good.
thinking, I was just envisioning it and just
We need to
imagining.
make it happen now.
We need to, we have to. And it is possible. Because in August, I'm speaking at a multidisciplinary um, conference, and it's online, and it's people from all over the world sharing
Excellent.
research. Yeah, sharing
Brilliant.
research ideas. So we can do it. It's amazing. So we will see how we get on with that. But it is sorry, I got distracted a little bit, but I'm excited about the possibilities. So we're going to carry on with our discussion, and we're looking at the changing face of leadership from your observations. And let me just quote Shakespeare, Joanna, before we get into that question. And in Twelfth Night, one of the characters said, "Some are born great, some achieve
Some
greatness."
achieve greatness and some have greatness thrust upon them.
Excellent.
It's my
There we go.
favourite.
Is it? Oh my
It's my
goodness.
favourite. Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
yeah.
I thought this was an apt quotation for this segment of the show. Tell me, why do you like it?
I love Twelfth Night. It's just my favourite. It's my favourite
Oh,
Shakespeare play.
oh my
It's
goodness.
I like how it dots about and it's very funny.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I went to Stratford-upon-Avon once, and they were having outdoor performances, but members of the audience or just people walking by could just yell out a Shakespeare play, and they would have to perform it. And I shouted, "Twelfth Night!"
Yeah. That's my
And they did.
favourite.
Oh, fantastic. Is it because in that particular play, women are empowered to an extent?
Possibly. I've never thought about it like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, based on that, and from your observations and years of experience, how has the concept of leadership in education evolved over the past few decades? You must have seen some changes.
I've seen huge changes. I would say 30 years ago, it was very much do as I say and not do as I do. Particularly, I mean, I was working in the UK at the time, and it was very much leadership was delegating tasks to people. It was very task orientated. It was very much just monitoring to make sure that people had done what they were supposed to do. It was very administrative, I would say. I mean, we're going back a long time there. And then I remember about 2 years into my teaching career, Investors in People happened, and they came into the UK and they started talking about appraisals. This was the first time this had really happened, and they started doing lesson observations and giving people targets, and that seemed to move things forward a little bit. I would say, I would hope, and I don't believe we're there yet, so I'm not sure if you would agree with me. I'd like to see leadership more to be based on school improvement rather than just monitoring and reviewing and, to actually think about things. But I would say something that's been a positive thing that's happened relatively recently is the care for people's mental health and well-being, because
Yes.
that wasn't present before.
Yes. Thank you so much. And yes, I agree. It should be more about improvement rather than task oriented or monitoring, as you said, and not really achieving much from the monitoring, or
Yeah.
it doesn't go to the next level. You monitor and you give some feedback, but then how do you support from there?
Yeah. Or data collection. Great. Yes, we need data. What for? What are you using it for? Is it going to sit in a spreadsheet? Don't do it if we don't need to do it, or don't have a meeting if we don't need to have a meeting. Send an email, or please don't send emails. You're sending too many. And it needs to be for school improvement and not just because people feel they need to do it because it's an administrative task.
Oh, I love that. I love that. We need to get you on another platform. Yes, Hope said agreed. And it's all this data to show that I am good with numbers. But what do we do with it?
Yeah. What's the point?
What's the point? Graham, welcome. Welcome to the show. And please share with us. Let us know how you feel. If you have a question or a comment, we would appreciate that. We've got Shawnee, welcome. And I saw somebody else earlier, Deepika. I don't know if you've left now, but welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope, the excitement that we're feeling about leadership and empowering our students, I hope it's coming through, because that's what this show is all about. Hope is online. Joanna, she said, work should always be children focused.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. And
100%.
sometimes it becomes performative, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that needs to stop. And even, you know, when we're talking about data, that data has been taken from making children do tests. Did they really need to do that? You know, we need to think really carefully about what we're doing things for. I would say it has to be for the good of the students, or
Yes.
just don't do it.
Are we talking about those statutory tests, or just throw in a half-term, mid-term, bi-weekly tests?
All of the above.
All of the.
Or, you know, do it if we need to do it to see where the children are at. But if that's not and then what are you going to do with it? You know, if you identify a gap through that, have you done something with it? And if you haven't, then why did we do it in the first place?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. This is music to my ears, and I'm sure other people on the platform are feeling exactly the same way. Why do we collect data? Why do we test? Are we doing these things for school improvement, or are we doing it to show off some figures and some numbers when we're being inspected?
Yeah.
Why are we doing it? That's a lot to think about. So I'm going to move on to my next question. Thank you so much, Joanna. What new challenges do today's educational leaders face compared to those in the past? Because the landscape is changing.
It is. I would say at the moment, something that's at the forefront for me is definitely the global teacher crisis. And I know I'm not the only principal around the whole world who's thinking that. I actually think we're quite fortunate in the UAE because, you know, we get great teachers who come here. There are people who are feeling a bit fed up in other countries, and it's a great place to live and people want to come here, but not necessarily for the right reasons sometimes. And I think that there is a crisis in teaching, and that worries me for the future because, you know, it's the best job in the world, but clearly people aren't feeling like that. So we need to look at that and think about why, and do something about that. And then the other thing that I would say is I feel very, very fortunate, but I've got a lot of colleagues who I speak to. I think the landscape of children and families has changed. And the best example that I can give you is I saw a cartoon that made me giggle. And it said it's a cartoon in the 1970s, and it's a teacher showing sitting at her desk with the mummy and daddy at parents' evening with the little boy, and she's got a piece of paper with an F on it, and the parents have turned to the little boy and said, "What on earth have you been doing? How have you got an F?" And then it cuts to the next side of the cartoon. It's the same picture, but the caption underneath it says, you know, the year 2024, and underneath it's the parents pointing at the teacher saying, why did my student get an F? And I think I am so fortunate in my school because our parents are wonderful, and honestly I cannot complain at all. But I know my daughter works in the UK, and I've got other colleagues that work around the world, and I know that they really suffer from this shift in landscape of parents and children, and the role of the teacher, and it's complicated.
It is complicated. Is the teacher's fault in some settings at the moment, which is unfortunate. You mentioned the crisis, the global teacher crisis, and you know, you said the question is why. But have you given this some thought, Joanne? I'd love to hear what you think could be the contributing factors or factor.
I can honestly say, I think if we're looking for people who are trained in the UK, I felt, and I haven't lived in the UK for 20 years, like I said, the difference that I felt 20 years ago, and I know it's even worse now, moving from the UK to France. In the UK, if I said to people, I'm a teacher, their response would be, oh, you get great holidays, you lot, and you finish work at 2:00. Yes. And I'd be like, I don't finish work at 2:00. I don't finish at all. I work in my evenings and at weekends, and I never have holiday because I'm in work. I've got too much work to do. But the response of people was, oh, you're a teacher. Oh, you know, could you not get a proper job? I moved to France, and if I said to people, that would be quite tentative at first. If people said, what do you do? I'd be like, oh, I'm a teacher. Oh, what a wonderful profession. Oh my goodness, the noble profession. Oh, thank you for what you do for our children. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is really, really different. It's the same in the UAE, actually, I would say. When I say to people, I'm a teacher, oh, wonderful. And I think until we tackle that element of it, but also workload, I would say. The work-life balance that teachers have, we've got it wrong to a certain extent, and that's making people leave the profession as well.
Yeah, which is a shame because we're losing some really talented people as well.
Yeah.
Who and we're even losing teachers who've been in the profession for a while and they've gone into other industries because of the workload. And Joanna, you are right. It is a constant battle sometimes. You know, when you say to people, "Oh, I'm so tired as a teacher," they go, "Yeah, but you get long holidays." And I always have to say to people exactly what you've said. Not really. Because already I'm thinking about all the things I need to do before August, and they will have to be done during the holidays. Uh, and the same marking late at night, planning and preparing as well. So it's good when it's recognized and that we're appreciated. It's really good to see, and that's definitely something that's changed over the years. So I did my teacher training in Jamaica, and my first 8 years of teaching. And when I was teaching there, I've said this on this platform before. On Teachers' Day, which is something that's celebrated in some parts of the world, Teachers Appreciation Day, the sixth form students would take over, and take the lessons. They would just get the timetable off a particular teacher and go, right, miss, I am teaching English today. I'm teaching all your lessons. What's the plan? And so on. And we'll just relax. Somebody will take over the principal's office as well and lead for the day, of course, with close guidance. And I was reminding my mom recently as well. I wasn't driving at the time, Joanne, and I'd have to get a taxi to transport my gifts home.
Oh, yeah.
I know. And even today, my mother still has some of those presents over 30 years now. So, yeah, that level of appreciation. But, things have really changed. And it's sad to see sometimes some of the people who I message and they go, oh, I'm no longer teaching. But hopefully the tide will turn again, although there's lots of talk about what the future will look like in the classroom, Joanne, and that we're going to be projected into the classroom through holograms and headsets and VR and AR.
I hope not.
No, I don't think so. We'll always need the human touch. I can't imagine it otherwise.
Definitely.
But we'll see. By then, I won't be in the classroom anymore. But
me neither. I'm too old.
I'll be watching from the sidelines. So let's talk about the impact of environment. How much influence do you think an educational environment has on shaping a leader? So not the students, not the teachers, the leaders.
I think a huge difference, because I think the culture of the school can make a big difference to whether somebody wants to go into leadership at all or wants to remain in leadership. So that's really important. The environment's important. And what I would say is to recognise, and I would say to anybody, everybody is different and every school is different, and find the school that's right for you to thrive in. And I always say to the kids, we joke about it, the girls know because I laugh about it, and I say to them, I always found it easier to teach boys than I did girls. So if Sheikh Mohammed came up to me today and said, you can have one of my schools, first of all, I'd say I'm not leaving Wales, but if he said you can do Sheikh Zayed School for boys or you can do Sheikh Zayed School for girls, I would go, oh, boys, because, I find that easier. And I think sometimes the school environment, it's not right for you. But that doesn't mean that you're not a good leader. It just means that leadership in that school is not the right place for you, but there's somewhere else where it will be. And find the right school for you.
Yeah. And do you think people generally have the courage to accept that or move on, or do people often just stick it out?
I think sometimes they stick it out and they think it's their fault. So I think they can be quite reflective and think, oh, it must be me, I must be doing something wrong. But sometimes, like we're saying, it's just nature and nurture. It's just not the right place for you, if that makes sense. So if I can give you an example, in our school, it's in a very, very conservative area. That really suits me. So the school's very much based on Islamic values and UAE national identity. And I love that. Somebody else would come to the school and not respect that and not think that that's important, and it
Mhm.
wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's the context, isn't it?
absolutely. And if you came in as a sort of British expat hoping to put, obviously you have British values in the school because British and the Islamic values are very, very similar. But if I had gone into that school with the idea of, I am British and this is what we do, yes, I'm going to teach this, even though it's not supposed to be taught here, but, it wouldn't work because it's not right for that context.
Yes. I've seen that before as well. I've seen where leaders have left a particular context, moved on to continue leading in other schools in different contexts, but bring over the same approaches, and they just don't work.
Yeah.
And then they're questioning, oh, but it was so successful in this school, and this happened and this happened, but why is it not making an impact here? And yeah, thinking about it, it's the context.
Always you have to be very mindful of what the context is, and you have to listen.
Yes, completely agree. So before we go for the news, which I promise you, Joanna, is very interesting, and the news will just keep you up to date with what's happening in education in the UK. Can you discuss for us the role of mentorship and peer influence in leadership development? So we looked at the environment, mentorship and peer influence.
Oh, it's incredibly important, and I still need it now. And I'm very fortunate, like a lot of people are here, that we do have groups where I can pick up the phone and ask any of my peers for advice or help whenever I want. I've always had people who I can think of that really mentored me. I have a friend of mine, Dawn, who is she's the principal of the King's School in Murcia in Spain. She is just she is my mentor. She taught me so much and encouraged me, and I will always be very, very grateful to her. And I've got a very good relationship with the people who work in COBIS as well. And I know that I can ask for help at any time, and it's invaluable. For me, I try to do it all the time. People who work with me will laugh because I call it old lady advice. So if I haven't been asked for my advice, I'll kind of try to mentor and guide people, and I'll say to them, can I just give you some old lady advice? What I think you should do is this. And it's just like, and it kind of covers a multitude of sins because they haven't asked for my advice, but I'm trying to guide them in leadership and say, you need to just listen. So I kind of wrap it in a kind bubble of saying, so instead of going, don't do that, you shouldn't have done this, blah, 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 I go, can I just give you some old lady advice and try and guide them with experience?
Joanna, we'll make an acronym of that. We'll call it OLA.
I like that one. It sounds nicer than old lady.
Yeah, Ola.
Thank you.
Some Ola time. Oh, amazing. Yeah, mentorship is so important because that also helps you to develop, and it gets you to be reflective on your own practice as well, because people will draw to your attention things that you probably haven't even noticed or recognized yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Those of you joined recently, we've got Shawnee. I think I probably welcomed you before. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you may leave us a question or a comment. Tell us how you're feeling, any takeaways from the show so far. It is an open platform, so please do share with us. Now we're going to take a break for the news, and when we come back, we will be rounding up the show, believe it or not. And Joanna, thank you so much for such an amazing discussion.
It's a pleasure.
Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Empowering education with easy for you, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionises the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations, easy for you, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading. Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
A lack of maintenance support is creating a two-tier higher education system, says a report in The Guardian. More than half of full-time students are working long hours in jobs to support themselves at university, according to a survey of UK undergraduates conducted by the Higher Education Policy Institute. The survey of 10,000 students found a record 56% had paid employment and were working an average of 14.5 hours per week. Experts said the lack of maintenance support was widening the divide between students who need to work to survive and their better-off peers who are free to concentrate on their studies. When combined with time spent attending lectures, classes and other study, students with part-time jobs are averaging a 48-hour working week, with some completing a 56-hour working week during term time. The average working time for adults in full-time jobs, according to the ONS, is just 36.6 hours per week. Higher Education Policy Institute's Rose Stevenson said the traditional model of higher education, with undergraduates studying full-time away from home, was becoming unattainable, and maintenance support would need to improve in order to support students with the cost of living. According to research, the cost of living crisis abruptly flipped the proportion of students mixing paid employment and full-time study. Before 2021, roughly two-thirds of students had no paid employment in term time. But this year, 56% of students said they had paid employment and were working longer hours than students in previous years. Three-quarters said this was to meet their living costs, whilst 23% said it was to give financial support to families. 80% of students who had been in care were working in part-time jobs. The research also explored how working students completed their studies, with more being likely to use artificial intelligence programs and were more likely to view lectures online. Further details of the study and an additional report by the National Union of Students can be found online via the Guardian website. Money is also a feature in an article by Schools Week. It focuses on a response to a Conservative pledge to protect pupil funding in real terms. According to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, this could lead to the biggest school budget reduction for 50 years. The Conservative manifesto contains a promise to protect day-to-day school spending in real terms per pupil, but the IFS said this would work out as a £3.5 billion cut. This is because pupil numbers are due to fall by 400,000 by 2028. Meanwhile, Labour launched its manifesto with many media outlets covering its pledges on education. The National Education Union General Secretary welcomed the party's commitment to education, but said the proposals contained no indication that education cuts would be reversed. The NEU also expressed concern that Labour's pledge to recruit 6,500 teachers does not go far enough. The NASUWT union also commented on the recruitment pledge, saying it must go hand in hand with tackling the cause of the teacher retention crisis. Manifestos for all parties who have published them are available online. Away from the election, the BBC reports on an experiment undertaken by 10 teenagers from Salford. The teens swapped their smartphones for basic devices that could only make calls or send texts for a period of 5 days. The detox was run as part of a BBC project looking at the smartphone habits of young people. The report covers the positive impact the detox has, as well as the negatives. One of the participants dropped out after just 27 hours because not being online was really stressful. Some, however, found it liberating, as well as helping with sleep and engaging more with friends and family. Full details of the experiment and the responses of participants can be found on the BBC News website. Finally, as a follow-up on a story previously reported on Teachers Talk Radio News, Teesside University has announced it will help fund flights for Nigerian students hit by financial difficulties. Students from Nigeria were thrown off courses and ordered to leave the UK after a currency crisis left them struggling to pay tuition fees. The BBC Tees News website covered events and subsequent protests about the way students had been treated. This resulted in some intervention from the Nigerian government, but Teesside University has also told the BBC that it has re-enrolled some affected students and opened a travel fund, with a spokesperson saying, "We are working with a small group who do need to return to their home country and are opening an international relief fund to offer additional financial support for those unexpected travel costs." Some students have been told they can complete their studies from Nigeria or return to the UK at a later date to complete. Full details of the story can be found on the BBC News website, Teesside section. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News from Joe Fox.
And thank you so much, Joe. Lots there to think about, and I'm happy that it's ended on a good note. There is hope in humanity, and I hope those students will benefit from that. Welcome back, Joanna. Welcome back, listeners. And if you've joined during the news or just before, welcome. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Remember to download the Podbean app so you can call in. Love to hear your voices as well, or send us a message. We'd appreciate that. So now we're in the final stretch of the show, Joanna. It goes by so quickly, especially when we're having such an engaging discussion. So far, we've talked about leading with integrity, the need to be authentic, the need to keep learning as teachers, as leaders, so that we can evolve with the time. We've talked about leadership and how it should be driven by the need for school improvement and should not be purely performative. Joanna said that we should ask the whys. Why do we collect data? Why do we set those tests? What's the impact? What's the intention? What's the outcome? And in the last bit of the discussion, we talked about knowing the school culture. Is it right for you? Is this the place where you will thrive as a leader? And then that takes us to the next part of the discussion. Joanna, how can educational institutions support the development of leadership qualities in their staff and students? Because as you said earlier, you do see some of those traits. I have one student in my debating club, and she will come in, organize the tables, the chairs, and organize everybody. She goes, right, today we're sitting like this. And I'm just looking at her thinking, this is a leader in the making. So how should educational institutions hone those skills?
I think it's by giving people opportunities and recognizing talent. And I think I can give you an example from our school, and not trying to do it yourself and not trying to take credit for things as well is very important. So some of our year 7 girls came in a few weeks ago and they just went, Miss, can we ask you a question? I said, yes. And they said, we'd like to do a business day. That's like an entrepreneur day. And I said, I don't understand what you mean, girls. And they said, we start our own business, then we'll bring things in and then we'll sell them in the auditorium and then we'll see how much money we make. And then whoever's made the most money wins. And I went, okay. And they went, right, all right then. And I said, no, not me, you. And I said, I've said yes, but you have to do the work. Honestly, they went away. They did the best day ever. They filled the auditorium and I did nothing. No, they just literally got on with it. And it's the same with staff. You know, sometimes people say, wouldn't it be great if we did this? And I go, who's we? And it's like, well, you know, we, and I'm like, no, you do it. You know, who is we? Who are you talking about? You know, if you have an idea, or I just go, well, off you go, then you do it. And give people the opportunities to thrive, because I think sometimes we get into a bit of a routine of there's a family tree of principal and then it's, you know, the vice principal and then you've got a head of primary and a head of secondary and that's this person's job. Or I hate it when people go, that's not my job. It's everybody's job. We're a team. It makes me really angry when I hear people go, it's not my job. Yes, it is. You know, we're here to help each other. And I think you never know what people's talents are if you don't give them the opportunity to explore it. So give them the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for that, Hope. Hope says shared responsibility. Yes. And, you know, the thing is, Joanne, I think it's so important for head teachers, for example, to be receptive of other people's opinions as well, and to, you know, be welcoming so that people feel comfortable to come to the head and say, right, listen, I have this idea, and talk it through. But sometimes that's not necessarily the case because of that hierarchy, as you said. Ooh, I'm not up there, therefore I can't share these ideas.
I remember when I first went to my school and I said to the kids, you know, my door is always open and it's open to anybody, you know, staff that at all levels and the kids and the parents. You know, it genuinely is an open door policy. And I remember somebody commenting when I first started, the children shouldn't be coming to your office, you're the principal. And I said, that's exactly who should be coming to my office, because I need to know what they want.
Yes. And they will give you another perspective as well.
Oh, they do. Every Friday, I do something called Picnic with the Principal. It's hilarious. So they're nominated by the teachers for either being kind or they've done a great piece of work, and they come to the picnic. It's just some orange juice and a biscuit, but they come and they bring their work, and I say to them, show me something that you're proud of. What's your favourite subject? And I ask them, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because I think it's important, again, to sort of make them think about the future. But then I always say to them, is the school getting better? And what can we do to make the school even better? And the ideas that they have and the things that they say, it's just inspiring. So you have to listen to them.
Yep. And they come with fresh insights.
Or they can tell you exactly what's going on.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And they will not hold back, especially if they've developed that trust. I often have to say to students, I mean, for all the time I've been teaching, no, please don't mention names. Because in the middle of a lesson, they'll say things like, Miss, why are you so extra? So-and-so is just letting us watch a film today. You're just too extra. You're doing the most. Yeah, I know. So they will tell you. So it's
yes, they do.
To keep the door open. So Joanna, you know that you talked about inspiring your children and seeing those qualities. On a previous program that you were on, and this bit really touched my heart. You talked about that student who said she wants to be a principal.
Sultana. Yeah, Sultana is my principal in training. So I'm not sure she would listen to this podcast, so I can tell you she's getting a very special award in our award ceremony at the end of this week. She doesn't know that yet. She said in Picnic with the Principal that she wanted to be a principal when she grew up, and as she said at first, because one of the other girls said it was quite funny, one of the other girls said, I want to be a teacher. And I turned and I said, oh, Sultana, you would be a brilliant teacher because she's got the natural qualities to be a teacher. And she said, I don't want to be a teacher. And I was just about to go, oh, you know, what are you talking about? And she said, I don't want to be a teacher. I want your job. I want to be the principal. I want to run this school. And she said, when you leave this school, when you retire, I want your job. So I said, okay, I'll train you. That little girl gets up. Her mum's going to kill me because she gets up every day really early. She's the first person in their family ready, and she stands at the door shouting at her brothers and sisters and her mum to hurry up to get in the car because she needs to be at school early to do duty, because she stands at the gate with me in the morning. Seriously, every morning she stands at the gate with me. And again, I could tell you something that was quite funny. I had to be very professional and go, so please don't do that. One of our members of staff might have been ever so slightly late and was dashing out of their car and running in. She looked at them, tapped on her watch and said, excuse me, you're late. And I said, right, I'll deal with this, not you. So I call her my principal in training, and she's absolutely just brilliant.
Oh my goodness. Does she have a high-vis
Yes, she
jacket
does.
yet?
And she's even told me off before, because there was one day I was in a meeting and she was standing in the reception waiting for me because I was late to go to, because obviously she can't go to the gate without me. And she was standing in the reception waiting for me, and I came out and she said, I've been waiting for you. Where have you been? And I said, I was in a meeting. Come on. And she said, we're on duty. Come on.
Oh, wow. So you know that she is going to be an authoritative leader
Absolutely.
to start
Yeah.
with. No
Yeah.
nonsense. And you know, Joanna, it'd be really good to follow that student's journey
Oh, I will.
and see that is brilliant. Oh my goodness. And that's what we need to do, inspire our staff and our students. Oh, I love that. So we're nearing the end of the show, and just a few more questions. I'm going to skip some of them, uh, Joanna, so that we can get through your own personal insights. We've kind of talked a little bit about future leaders and how to prepare them, and we talked briefly about teacher training and just encouraging that love for learning and reading and research. And you mentioned Brené Brown. We're not promoting that. It's a book that's out there for everybody. It's a good tool to have. And I even watched her on one of our popular platforms, one of our popular television shows or programs, when she was delivering her speech on that as well. And it's these things that we need to draw people's attention to, and teachers, just to keep reading. And also, Joanna, it's not even just the edu books, it's about books as well to sharpen our skills as classroom teachers as well, and our subject knowledge. Because somebody was observing a lesson and saying, oh, there was no critical thinking. And I said to the person, but it's difficult for the teacher to encourage critical thinking if they don't have the subject knowledge. And so I think as leaders, we also need to provide the space for teachers to develop
Yeah.
their subject knowledge as well as everything else.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
I know it's easier said than done, Joanna, because you know operationally how these things work more than I do. But I just think there needs to be a little bit more time and space for teachers to fall in love with their subjects
It's
again.
time, and it's also collaborating again. Get together, start WhatsApp groups with people who are in the region, and as I said earlier, the way that I look at it is we're all in the game to help children and to help ourselves to be the best leaders or the best teachers that we can possibly be. And I'll say it again, it's not a competition. So connect with people, meet people. I am quite happy. I will open my school doors up to absolutely anybody from Dubai, from Abu Dhabi, from the whole of the UAE or around the world. Come in and talk. So if you're a particular subject teacher, so you're English, get in touch with all of the English teachers in the region. Let's all get together and talk about what we can do as English teachers. And that time, and even, have a morning, Saturday morning, coffee morning. Every English teacher get together. You can come to my school, talk, because reading's important, but the joy of book club is the talking about what you read and how different people interpreted different things and the different ideas that they've had from that. That's what inspires people.
Completely agree. And on a previous show, one of the barriers that was discussed was time.
Always.
But I think, but we look at the school curriculum and we look at the school day, we look at the calendar and just make the time, I suppose. it is so important that as educators, we're constantly falling in love over and over again with our subject so that we can pass on that passion to our students. But that's for another show, I suppose, Joanna. Um, so some personal insights. How has your own leadership style been influenced by both nature nurture?
As I said before, I would say that the nature for me is I like talking to people, as you can guess. I like communicating. And as I said, my family would describe me as bossy, and I am an eternal optimist. So that's the easy part for me. I think the experiences and circumstances of what's happened in my life and the context of the schools I worked in have definitely shaped it. But what I would say, one of the biggest influences that happened with me was Dawn, who I was talking about before. There was one day, I don't deal well with frustration. I know myself very well. You need to be reflective and you need to think about yourself, and I constantly think that I'm not always right, and just reflect on what I've done. And I remember being really, really frustrated, and I don't deal very well with frustration, and it makes me lose it, and I get, not on people, but I get frustrated and it's not good. And I was saying, oh, for goodness sake, no, how could you not get that done? Blah, 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 blah. And Dawn said, Joanna, stop. Not everybody's like you. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, you could get that done in 10 minutes. And she said, no, you could get that done in 10 minutes, but it might take that person 2 hours. And it really, really stuck with me that, I have to keep thinking, every leadership style, not everybody's like you. And that's a good thing, that everybody's different. And so to be empathetic and think, yes, I could do that in 10 minutes, but it is going to take that person longer and they need the time. And just to keep reminding myself, not everybody's like you, and being you isn't the best thing in the world anyway. Some people have better skills than you do, and just reflect on that constantly.
That is so important because I guess if we begin to think like that, then we'll start taking on all the jobs.
Yeah.
Going, nobody can't do it properly. Let me just do it.
That's dangerous.
To avoid the frustration, that is very dangerous on so many levels, mental health, everything. Yeah. Very insular in your thinking. So everybody is not like you. That is such a good one to remember at all times. I need to take this one on board as well. Not everybody's a Duracell bunny.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going and doing 10 things at the same time.
And people's family circumstances as well. When you're in leadership, I think you get more of an insight into that. When you're a classroom teacher in your classroom, you're responsible for the children, you're responsible for you. When you're in leadership, you're responsible for your team, and people's family circumstances can have an impact on their ability to do certain things at certain times. And, can you just stay behind with 5 minutes notice? I've had this happen throughout my career. Oh, we're going to have a staff meeting tonight. And you're going, I've got to go and pick my kids up. But you have to think.
Yeah. Outside of your own little
Yeah.
bubble. Yeah. That is such a good thing to pass on as well, and very, very important. Those last minute meetings or the meetings that go over time, well over time, thinking about people's circumstances, we have to really pause and be conscious of those factors. We have a few more minutes left, Joanna, and I'd like you to share your final thoughts with aspiring and current leaders in education. So if you were to leave them with something to think about, what would it be?
I would say listen. Listen to the people that you're dealing with, listen to the children, listen to parents, listen to what people say, because you're not always right. When I retire, I'm going to do my PhD, and my PhD is on the ego of the head teacher, but actually you could extend it to the ego of teachers, or the ego of leaders in general, and let your ego go and listen to what people are saying, and seek out feedback. I would say having the courage to admit when you're wrong, and say sorry and put it right, be vulnerable, as Brene Brown says. And like I said earlier, if the school's not right for you, then, think about it. Don't take it personally. Don't take things personally ever, is what I would say. And final thing is, go for it. Go for it. It's a wonderful thing. I absolutely love my job every single day. I love my school. I love what I do. And that makes a huge difference in your life, because for mental health and well-being, you have to love what you do. And
Yeah.
If you're thinking about going into leadership, honestly, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Do it.
Okay. What a great message. Okay, Joanna, listen, you're sharing these messages. And for a moment, I forgot where I was. I was taking it on board myself.
Oh,
It felt like you were talking to me that, Michelle, go on, go for it. Get into leadership, senior leadership. Do it.
yeah, do it.
Oh, yes, yes. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, Joanna, thank you so much. I wish we had another half an hour, but it's way past our bedtime and we are at the end of the show. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving up your time. Thank you for the passion. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for loving your job. It is so good to see somebody else. And there's so many of us like you as well who just love our jobs. Joanna, I used to walk around with a notebook written in big, bold, red and black letters. I love my
Yeah.
job. And my colleagues would look at me and ask me if I'm being sarcastic. And I'm like, no, I do. I love it.
Yeah.
I even took a picture of that book because when I came to the end of the book, I couldn't find another one. And it is so important. That's our starting point. We just have to love what we do. And so, some takeaways from tonight from our lovely guest. As educators, we are not competing, we are facilitating learning. We should collaborate with each other, share, care, listen. Everybody is not like you. So be patient, be courageous. And one of the last things Joanna said, apart from listening, know when the context is not for you. Don't take everything personally. So let's continue to lead with integrity. Let's continue to develop others and to develop ourselves. And that's what education is all about. Joanna, I hope to meet you in the flesh one of these
You're
days.
welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Come and visit.
Oh, yes, I will take up the offer. Thank you for joining us on Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you for the insightful and invaluable discussion tonight. And fellow listeners, thank you for joining us. Mom and Dad in Kingston, Jamaica, and everybody else wherever you are. Joanna, check this out. I've got listeners from Romania
Wow.
and other parts of the world. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I do hope you also feel inspired, and I hope you also felt that passion that came through tonight from our guest, Joanna. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you so much, and hopefully I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. But what an amazing night. Thank you so much. Have a good night, Joanna.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Imagine having your own.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.